That's a direct order. Do it now.
Hi guys, Jim here, Extreme Booters. I've been to the charity shops this morning and thought, picked up a few items, not many, wasn't worth doing anything recording wise or anything whilst I was there, but thought it would give a good example of why Vinted has opened up a whole new possibilities for us clothing resellers. Obviously in the past, how long has Vinted been going? A couple of years, but previous to that, obviously it was just eBay that we'd sell at. It was the main online marketplace for most things, but specifically for clothing. Now Vinted and Vinted Pro for us business users has opened up a whole new realm of possibilities because of, well, one reason mainly, the lack of fees. Obviously eBay generates their money for business users at least by charging us fees on everything that we sell. Different for private sellers, those fees are added on to the buyer now, which I think is wholly unfair against us business sellers, but that's another matter. Vinted obviously does the same. There is a purchase fee when you buy something on there, and you have to pay the postage as a buyer. But obviously as a seller, if you list something for £5, you get £5. You don't have to bother with the fees, you don't have to bother with the postage, because that's all sorted out through Vinted with the buyer. Now, in terms of buying, that might make things slightly different, but here obviously I'm a reseller. I'm purely concerned, well, not purely, but mainly concerned with the selling and what it's going to cost me and how I'm going to sell items. So I've picked up 5 items this morning in the charity shops. Obviously prices in charity shops for clothing is another matter. They are very, very highly priced. I found a lovely Fred Perry gilet in one, but it was £45. I sell Fred Perry a lot. I can only get 25 for one of them. That's another matter. That's another video. That is not why I've done this video. I went into one charity shop and there were some items that are well priced. They're worth buying, but rewind to without Vinted, there wouldn't have been that much point buying all these items. So I'll try and prove that. I've gone through the items, and I'll show you now. I've roughly calculated what your eBay fees would be, plus your postage, and then obviously what you can list it for on eBay and what you can list it for on Vinted, and tried to show the difference in what you can make and why it is now worth buying stuff with smaller margins that you wouldn't have bought before, while it is worth it now because of Vinted. I'll start with the smaller value items. Now these are particularly relevant to Vinted because small value items on eBay, the fees, the cost, etc., barely makes it worth it, and there are a couple of examples that show this that I wouldn't have picked up have it not been for being able to sell it on Vinted. So here we've got a rather nice check shirt. It's Quicksilver, and I paid £4.50 for this. Resale, you're looking on eBay, the resale of this would probably be £11.95. For purposes of making sums easier, because I am not very good at maths, I've rounded stuff up on the costings that I've done. So on eBay, I would list that for £11.95. I would have fees of, let's say, I mean, fees vary for various people. I'm going to say 20%. That is a rough calculation. It covers pretty much everything. So let's say 20%. So of £12, 20% is £4. That takes you down to 8. But then, in order to get a sale on eBay, you pretty much need to offer free postage all the time. So you've got to post that as well. So what's that? Small parcel with every. That's going to be £3. It takes you down to a £5. I paid £4.50. I'd only make 50p. It isn't worth my time. It isn't worth bothering. However, Vinted, this shirt will list for £7.50. probably a bit more, but I've put £7.50, and it'll sell easily. So you make £3 profit, it's worth buying. £4.50 into £7.50, quick photo, quick list, job done. Without Vinted, wouldn't have bought it, no point, but otherwise I'm making £3. Picked up a couple of Gan V-necks. This is a premium cotton sweater, and there is also a sleeveless. Both double XL, so big sizes. The gilet or sleeveless was £6. In fact, they were both £6. eBay listing wise, the sleeveless you're looking at about 16. So after fees and postage, you're looking at about £8.80. So you'd make £2.80. Vinted, £10, £4 profit. Bosh, easy. The V-neck, looking at a bit more for that because it's obviously a sweater, and this is the premium cotton one. So £6 on eBay, that's 20 all day long. Take off fees, postage, you're at 12. But Vinted, £15. So you're making an extra £3. It's still possibly worth buying for eBay because you're doubling your money, which is a reasonable return, but you can just get a little bit extra if you were to sell that on Vinted. Now things start to get a little bit more, which do I do? Because we're talking slightly higher value items. When it's slightly higher value, eBay does tend to still come out trumps. So I've got two more items here. One is a Barber International. There's a little mark on that. You can't really see. I really do need to upgrade my camera. Barber International quarter zip sweatshirt, grey in small, and this is a white stuff gentleman's relish tweed jacket in a double XL, nice big size. That was £7.50. The Barber was a tenner, so paid up for the Barber, £10, but obviously Barber's a very good brand. I sell a lot of Barber, I do know the brand quite well. So let's look at which is it worth to sell on. The Barber resale on eBay, looking at £30, not bad from a tenner, but then you've got to take your fees and postage off. Fees are going to be roughly 6, postage probably 4ish, so £20. Vinted, £20. Straight away list it for £20 and that'll sell. So at that sort of value, they're about the same. So it's down then to preference. Do you want to list it on eBay? Do you want to list it on Vinted? Obviously there are cross listings, you can do that, but I personally don't bother with that. I'd probably go with eBay on that because of the larger market. You're making the same amount of money. Lastly, the white stuff tweed jacket, bargain at £7.50. That's not bad at all. Especially being double XL, nice big size. Probably be able to push the prices up a bit on that one. eBay, £35 listing price. Vinted, you're only looking about 18 to 20. So eBay, £35 sale price, which is really good, especially from a £7.50 purchase. Fees on that's going to be about £7, postage 4, so you're looking at about £24 profit from that. That is not bad from £7.50. Vinted, as I said, is £18 to £20, so eBay does come out trumps on that. So that just goes to show there is an advantage of Vinted, but at a certain level eBay does take over, because I think buyers from Vinted don't want, I don't know if it's they don't want to spend as much money, but they're looking for a bargain. So you've got to price it keenly. There's a lot of people on there who are just clearing out their wardrobe, who want stuff gone. So you've got to price it accordingly. With eBay, you can go a little bit higher. Obviously, you've got a much bigger market, and that's why that works for higher value items. But as I've said, lower value stuff, I would have definitely bought the tweed. I would have bought the Barber because I'm looking at 20 after fees and stuff on eBay with that. But the other stuff, if I'd sell them on eBay, it just simply isn't worth it. I would have spent 6, 12, £16.50, and I would have made 26. £10 profit. It's just not worth it. Whereas on Vinted, I'm going to be getting 25, 32.50. So I'm doubling the money. That's why Vinted has opened up a whole new world for us clothing resellers, and that's why it's sometimes worth listing on there, and it's sometimes worth listing on eBay. So everyone, please sign up for Vinted if you haven't done so. It is a really good marketplace. It's especially good for buying stuff as well as selling. We're doing ever so well on there. It's simple to do. The listing process is very easy, and the whole process indeed is simple. So big thumbs up for Vinted, and a big thumbs up for an extra market, for an easy market for us resellers. Hope that's useful to someone. Catch you soon. Bye.